Hi, I'm Ranger Lauren of Boston National Historical Park. On May 25th, 1775, the HMS Cerberus sailed into Boston Harbor. Three of Great Britain's best generals, William Howe, John Burgoyne, and Henry Clinton, disembarked, here to assist General Thomas Gage with stopping the growing rebellion in Massachusetts. 3 weeks later, these generals led the British Army to a costly victory at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Here are 5 things you should know about the British officers at the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Hi, I'm Ranger Mara. Following the Boston Tea Party, General Thomas Gage, the Commander-in-Chief of the British forces in North America, was appointed Governor of Massachusetts. The relationship between Gage and Bostonians quickly deteriorated as he enacted the Intolerable Acts, which closed the port of Boston and sent British soldiers to occupy the city streets. In April 1775, he sent British troops in search of stockpiled weapons to prevent the outbreak of rebellion in the colony, but the plan failed. Instead, shots were fired at Lexington and Concord, and by the end of the day, Boston was under siege by thousands of colonial militiamen. Although his army was victorious at the Battle of Bunker Hill 2 months later, the American Revolution had been set in motion. Gage had lost the faith of the British government. He was then replaced by General William Howe, recalled back to England, ending his career in North America.
General John Burgoyne arrived in Boston in May 1775 to discover the British Army was surrounded by thousands of colonial militiamen. What? 10,000 peasants keep 5,000 King's troops shut up? Well, let us in, and we'll soon find elbow room, he boasted. A few weeks later, John Burgoyne watched the Battle of Bunker Hill from here on Copp's Hill at the British gun battery located adjacent to this burying ground. 2 years later, in 1777, Burgoyne formulated a plan he believed would finally quell rebellion in the colonies. Burgoyne would move south from Canada as General William Howe moved north from New York City. They would meet and together sever troublesome New England from the rest of the colonies, starving the rebellion. Due to poor communication, William Howe went to Philadelphia. He never met up with Burgoyne. Instead, Burgoyne suffered a crushing defeat and surrendered his entire army at the Battle of Saratoga in upstate New York. With a twist of irony, Burgoyne was defeated by many of the same colonial regiments his army had once driven from the field at Bunker Hill back in 1775. As the sun rose on the morning of June 17, 1775, the 4 British generals met to determine how to proceed against Colonel Prescott and his militiamen. 3 of the generals were in agreement. A traditional frontal assault was best to remove the rebels from the hill. It was typical then that General Henry Clinton, who had a reputation for irritating his fellow officers, would voice a dissenting opinion. Clinton wanted to take 500 soldiers here up the Mystic River, landing behind the colonial fortifications. You can see the Bunker Hill Monument behind me in the distance. The attack should also take place that morning, he urged, to prevent the colonials from further strengthening their position. But Clinton was ignored and overruled. Although the British were ultimately victorious in battle, they suffered a near 50% casualty rate with their afternoon frontal assault. Clinton bitterly remarked afterwards, "A dear-bought victory. Another such would have ruined us."
With over 1,000 British soldiers killed or wounded, what was truly shocking about the Battle of Bunker Hill was the amount of British officer casualties. Nearly 100 officers fell during this battle. 1/8 of all British officers' deaths during the Revolutionary War happened at Bunker Hill. Many historians suggest that the colonial militiamen purposely targeted the British officers who would have stood out in their bright scarlet uniforms. British officers would have marched alongside their soldiers into heavy fire, as opposed to directing the battle from the rear. One of the highest-ranking British officer casualties was Major John Picard, who valiantly led the British Marines into battle. Picard was struck 4 times and carried back to Boston, where he died hours later. The highly respected officer was then buried here at Boston's Old North Church.
At the Battle of Bunker Hill, General William Howe led the main attack. His first 2 assaults were firmly repulsed, but Howe's 3rd assault succeeded in driving the colonial forces from Breed's Hill. Despite the victory, the British casualties were staggering. Howe stood on the battlefield, his white stockings now splattered red with blood, looking around as every member of his field staff lay dead or wounded all around him. Howe later remarked, "When I look to the consequences of it, in the loss of so many brave officers, I do it with horror. The success is too dearly bought." Following the Battle of Bunker Hill, William Howe replaced Thomas Gage as Commander-in-Chief of British forces in North America. Howe's later actions in the war suggest that the horror he witnessed at Bunker Hill changed him as a commander. Howe repeatedly defeated George Washington in battle, but became less daring on the battlefield. He allowed Washington to escape, failing to seize opportunities where he could have destroyed George Washington's army. What started out as a simple attack plan in 1775 to remove obstinate New England farmers from a hill ended with all 4 British generals failing to hold on to the American colonies for the British crown. Not one found glory in the American Revolution. Thomas Gage was replaced with William Howe following the Battle of Bunker Hill. John Burgoyne returned to Britain following his crushing defeat at the Battle of Saratoga. A frustrated William Howe resigned as Commander-in-Chief in 1777. And finally, the war was lost under Henry Clinton's command when Charles Cornwallis surrendered to George Washington at Yorktown in 1781. On behalf of myself and Ranger Mara, we want to thank you for joining us today for 5 things you should know about the British officers at the Battle of Bunker Hill.